So, welcome to today's podcast.
Well, nice to have you here at last, Cindy.
Thank
It's been
you.
a while, hasn't it?
I know. And actually, it's been a while, and I feel like I've walked into, I don't know, the wardrobe at Narnia and come into the space of...
I know, it's our first ever podcast with a new studio.
Yeah.
So it's rather exciting. And we've got some great new guests here today. Do you want to go around and introduce yourself? So this is Cindy.
Cindy Wilcox, Director of RTERN, influence in education, health and social care in a nutshell.
So I'm Stevie Morris, I'm a mental health nurse with background, but currently working for Devon Integrated Care Board, and I'm the Learner Education and Clinical Workforce Lead for our system.
And I'm John Powell, and I run DISCA, and I'm a co-director of Unicare, along with this lady.
Yes. Thank you for my introduction. Bridget Williams, Director of Unicare Devon, for the last, goodness knows how many years.
Too long.
Too long. Over to you.
Thank you. So I'm Nikki Wright, and I am T-Level Industry Placement Coordinator alongside Stevie and her team with Devon ICB.
Brilliant. So, I think we're going to start at this end because of your introduction, I will say.
I'm lucky.
So, it would be good to kind of give us a bit more information about what that title means. So, you've talked about T-levels, and so could you just give us some information about that in itself?
Yeah, absolutely. So the face of 16 to 19-year-old education is going through change at the moment. A lot of people in the past who've chosen an alternative to A-levels have done something called a BTEC, which is a vocational qualification. Got a level 2 and a level 3, and the level 3 is done over 2 years. And as part of that qualification, the students go into placement to experience, hopefully, the job that they want to do long term. The government have decided that
The former government.
yes, the former sorry.
Yes. Oh, yes. I wondered how long it would be before we mentioned politics.
The ex-government decided that they wanted changes made, so they've worked with the professions themselves to create something called a T-level. T stands for technical, and again, it's a level 3. It's done over 2 years. But with much more emphasis on placements. So that's really part of the reason why we're here today. And my role is to coordinate those placements and make sure that they're fit for purpose and to get providers on board. And a big remit of mine has been around the fact that the T-level that's out there at the moment is a T-level in health. Social care has suddenly been missed, and because of my background working with Devon County Council in adult social care and meeting the likes of Mr. P here, my heart's still very much in social care, so I'm trying to fill in the gaps for them to make sure that they're not forgotten.
Sounds really good. I mean, I remember BTEC, so I was BTEC years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anyone else was, but
Yeah.
years and years ago, I was BTEC. That's how I started off. I will say I never finished, but that's a whole different story. But I am a registered nurse now, and I am in social care. So there you go. So
Absolutely.
It works.
it works.
does.
At some
It does.
point, it works. But yeah, it's really interesting. So your job is mainly about getting providers on for placements.
Yeah, so I liaise with both the educators and the care and health providers to ensure that the process is fit for purpose, to make sure it's seamless, and to make sure that everybody gets the best out of it. So it's important not just for the students, but also as well for the care providers themselves, because they're looking at their future workforce pipeline going forward.
And I think that's something like you two do a lot of in the work that you do, isn't it? In terms of kind of like developing the workforce, bringing things like, and it's like how we've shared time together on training schemes and
I think so. I think within domiciliary care we do well, and care homes. We want to develop our teams. We want to have pathways through, and that may be through to social care. It may be through to commission. It may be through to health. Either way, we want to make sure we've got a career pathway through. The question I have about the T-levels is what sort of exposure are the placements hoping to receive within social care?
Okay. I thought there was going to be more then.
So I think it's really important for us to recognise, the T-level is essentially the BTEC, but reimagined. And we've got a long-standing reputation in Devon of a really successful BTEC provision. So a lot of our social care providers are already hosting the BTEC learners. The T-level is different in the sense that they're learning the same kind of occupational skills and competencies, but they're having a longer period of time out in those placements, so they get more chance to be in those environments with the care homes, with the dom care providers, and it's about really making sure that they're occupationally competent by the time they finish their course. Because one of the big pieces of feedback from industry and the sector was that actually the BTEC wasn't quite fitting our needs anymore, with how much the care and social care sector have evolved and changed, and how there is much more blurring of boundaries now between what would sit in sort of secondary care and what the complexity is being held with our independent small social care providers. So we want to really support those skills that our young people need to have so that they're ready to come out into your...
There's a couple of really important parts.
Yeah.
So from one point of view, people learn in different ways. So
Yeah, definitely.
I'm much more kind of hands-on. You show me how to do something, I can pick it up and do it.
Yeah.
Some people, they need, it written from start to finish. Other people, they want to hear it. There's so many different ways and styles that people can learn. I think it's good to try and accommodate all of those. And I guess going on placement, you can do that because you can pull in all those kind of different areas and figure out what people need on an individual basis.
Very much.
And I think the other thing that you touched on was that it is an evolving picture. So education, health and social care is evolving. Mentioned the government was going to evolve further. But I think the expectation on people is probably much greater in terms of what they're expected to do. They're expected to hit the ground running.
I was going to use exactly the same terms because that's one of the challenges.
Yeah.
They are going to have to hit the ground running with no life experience.
Exactly.
Now, my daughter at the moment is just going into her GCSE years and is taking health and social care. Yeah. So, but she's my first child, so I have no previous experience of this, but I think that's a relatively new subject at schools.
Yes.
So at least there is some grounding, there is some kind of background for them to some exposure previously to come into the social care.
I also think, and we were talking about this earlier, is that at 16, you're never quite sure how you're going to react when you go into these places because you don't have your life experiences. No. You watch Casualty on telly and think, that's going to be great, isn't it? Or, I don't worry about blood or things like that. But actually, you put these people into a real life situation and all of a sudden it becomes something completely different.
Absolutely.
So actually, part of and quite interesting, when I started the role that I'm doing now, what I noticed was that social care sat in one place, NHS sat in a different place, and education sat in a completely different, and they didn't overlap at all. Part of what my remit is to do is to bring all those so that we have a central point to work from, that will help everybody who's involved in the process. And by that, we're actually bringing in a lot of external stakeholders as well. So Association of Colleges, Skills for Care, Skills for Health.
I love that though, because I think that's so important, like the combination of education, health and social care, because they don't operate as little islands, or they shouldn't. But so I think it is that, and I'm someone that's gone across the different sectors, and I've just taken on a first governor role, so I'm in a secondary school now with a primary attached, and I say it's been about 6-7 months, something like that. So it feels like because I feel like quite a novice in terms of a governor role. Obviously worked in education a lot around mental health, set up some of the early mental health projects in schools, towns, early health, mental health, things like that. But I think the actual combination of bringing education, health and social care together is going to be really crucial. And I know that we talked in the past about health and social care coming together. And I think in elements, I don't know what you guys think, but I think in elements that's happened, but I think in other areas we feel so far away still. I don't know if that's the same for you.
It is in domiciliary care.
Yeah.
It is, and I think we were again chatting earlier about the challenges that maybe a 16, 17-year-old could cope in a supported environment as residential care, a clinical environment where there are other people, but when they're possibly lone working, having to make big, important decisions, it's just not. It's not going to work.
And I think it's also relevant, isn't it? That they do need somebody with them all the time, really.
Absolutely.
I mean, one of the things that comes to my mind is, if I was a 90-year-old gentleman, would I want a 16-year-old young lady who's just coming into her sort of free life after school, washing me and dealing with me in that way? So I think there's lots of caveats that we have to think around here and lots of barriers.
Definitely.
But I don't think that should put us off. I think, as we look ahead, we're going to need pathways that start at 16.
Yeah, and
Hey, definitely. And I just like picking up on that. So I would say that I've been in probably social care. My first entry into social care, I worked in the laundry.
Yes.
I was a cleaner, then I became a carer.
Yeah.
You absorb the environment,
Yeah,
don't
so
you?
like that whole thing. I was-
Definitely.
did my work experience in a hospital.
Yeah.
And so kind of that's going back a few years. But that was my pathway. And then I didn't know I wanted to be a nurse. I never actually wanted to be a nurse. It wasn't that I didn't want to be.
That's
I just
exactly
fell
the
into
path I
it.
took. Yeah.
Exactly. So you're mental health nurse as
Yes.
well. I'm mental health nurse. So something about people. I was interested in
Yeah.
people and just kind of fell into it after I had my daughter. So my daughter was 1 and it kind of gave me a bit of a wake-up call. Like, she was my inspiration for getting life sorted. So just kind of went down that path. But I was able to draw on that experience from before, from those other jobs.
And
So
I
it's
think
great
you're
to have
right
something
there.
official, isn't it?
I think there's something about, you can really tell those who understand the experience that the patient, the service user, the client is going through when they've held those different roles in the different sectors. So they understand what it's like when their laundry goes missing and they can't wear their favourite cardi. They know what it's like when they're being discharged from hospital and they haven't got their meds ready, and what that then means for how they're supported back in the care home or at home, and the dom care workers come in and is like, I'm really sorry, Mr. Jones, I don't know what to give you, they're not here. When you've been through those different sectors, those different roles, and you really understand what it's like from the individual receiving the care's perspective, that's when we get really high quality patient person centered care. And one of the things we've really recognised is actually when you have somebody who leaves school with A levels and they go straight into doing like a degree in nursing, they are very competent as a nurse. But when it comes to them being able to progress and understand the breadth of what that patient's going through, the quality of how you plan for discharging, for example, isn't always the same as when you've had somebody who's been through those
Absolutely.
routes.
The best nurses have been carers, have been,
Yes.
the best doctors have possibly been nurses beforehand. I know that's not how it really works,
But
but
there's plenty of examples where that happens.
but there is, and they are really well-rounded people.
Yes.
And talking about experience, if you go back to not even health and social care, how it used to work with apprenticeships,
Yes.
being a carpenter, being a plumber, the best ones, the best joiners we have out there have probably worked in their dad's workshop when they were 12, grown up, got that experience, got that exposure, and worked their way up to being the person that they were and the tradesman that they were. It's not that different.
It's interesting, isn't it? So not just in education, health, social care, but just in different sectors. Obviously, meet a lot of people, come into contact, and I think one of the key things that I hear a lot about is that the experience is being lost from the workforce, whatever workforce that is.
Yeah.
So, from kind of, I don't know, open reach to carpentry to health, whatever it is, people have kind of moved on, retired, that kind of breadth
And
of
it's died with
experience.
them.
And it has, and
Yes.
so there's a lot of conversation about that and how you get that back, and I think that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I think also what I'm interested in is the risk element, the risk and resilience element. So have we become risk averse? It feels like we've become risk averse as a
Terrified.
society. And that positive risk taking seems to have lessened a little bit. So it's like people are very worried about, I don't know, for instance, placements. How old are they? What are they doing? What
definitely.
how's that going to be? And I'm not saying we shouldn't be looking at those things. And we've had work experience students, and the things that we've had them do has been very limited, not personal care,
Yeah.
not continence care, you know, it's been drinks and spending time and those kind of softer skills around interacting with
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
which is sometimes
Yeah.
hard. So just kind of getting them into that. But I think, I don't know, it's just a lot going on, isn't there? Experience, risk,
And
resilience.
that's in the
like-
background of COVID. That was only, 4 years ago? And when we think about those 16-year-olds now, or those who are coming to that point of thinking about what they're going to do post GCSE, when you think about that time in their life when they would have been really getting their confidence in social skills and communication, they were being told, no, you can't go near people, no, you can't go out and socialise, you can't mix in schools. So that will have had an impact. And so there is a balance for us to take around how do we help our young people recover and restore those skills that they maybe haven't had enough opportunity to develop so far, whilst balancing that against risk so that we can still attract people to our sector.
Well, in terms of development, isn't it? I mean, it's a crucial time for development. It's a time, you know, those years are a time where you're looking at your own identity, your sense of belonging, what's your purpose, you know, and a lot of that has kind of been lessened and lost, really.
Yeah.
And we just have to find a different way to kind of get it back. But
Well, I think with social skills, though, it's really hard, isn't it? Because with mobile phones now and, you know, Instagram and Facebook, all the social skills that we would have learned as children by going out and just socialising. You know, you might have been in the park drinking or whatever you were doing as a teenager.
John.
Hey,
Not me.
wear the badge. But it does teach you how to be, you know, how to empathise with people. It does teach you how to be caring. It does teach you how to just listen sometimes.
People are far more comfortable messaging on WhatsApp than they are having an actual
Yes, they
My daughter would rather WhatsApp me than have an actual conversation on the telephone.
From upstairs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's how we've evolved.
sounds like me.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great,
I do
Bring
not
us
have a
here.
back, I must admit. It's like, oh.
and that's one of the great things about the T levels. Actually, is in the first year there's very much emphasis on things like communication, just things like policies and procedures, things like self. Exploration almost.
I love that. I think that's so important because
Yes,
I think sometimes
absolutely.
it gets thrown out, and because people think, oh, we should know that. Well, why should we?
Yeah. And as you said, on the back of COVID, people have become much more introverted.
Yeah.
And just sometimes, you know, some of the educators have come to me and said, well, I don't know what to do about X, Y, and Z because they can't even hold a conversation.
Yeah.
Start again.
Or the
Start
concept of like having to pick up a physical phone that has a wire attached
Yeah.
to it and answering it, you know, with a physical keypad, you know. It's little things like that which we can really take for granted. And the other side of COVID was we became so risk averse with so many policies, procedures, risk assessments that we've kind of gone to polar opposites.
Yeah.
And I think in the middle of all that, if we think about the clients that we're working with and we're providing care for, we have to make sure that there are people skilled and ready and able to provide that care. We've had a long-standing route through BTECs. We don't know how much longer it's going to be with us. In Devon, we know that a few of our providers have already stopped doing BTEC in health and social care. So from our position in the ICB, we're acutely aware that there's potentially a workforce risk, and we want to make sure that all of our social care providers are aware of those changes that are happening, that we're ready for what is coming next, and that, you know, we can support in whatever way we can between now and that point when it changes from a BTEC to a T level, so that social care isn't left behind again and compounds those issues.
As providers, we've been seeing that, haven't we? We've been seeing how hard it is to recruit.
It's still hard to recruit.
And even when
It's
they've got
so
international
hard.
recruits now,
Yeah.
it's still really hard
Yeah.
because we're not bringing them up through
No.
directly
Yes.
from school.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I have to ask is, if a provider is interested in having some placements from T-level, 16 to 18-year-olds, and yes, we've mentioned the risk, you know, there's lots of things with barriers. Is there a plan that you'd have to follow, or is it up to the provider to dictate that plan? For instance, you mentioned a minute ago about there's an emphasis on communication and about policy and procedures. So is there a plan where you might say, well, actually for the first year, they're office space and they just are sat around watching, listening, learning, answering the phones? Or is it actually just up to us as uni heads go, do whatever you like.
Or is there funding attached to this? Because I've got to say, from a provider point of view, we couldn't afford to have someone extra answering phones, you know, every penny counts in this industry.
The good old ex-government,
Yes.
the little socks, have just removed what was called the Employer Support Fund. However, there's talks at the moment with the new government to bring out funding to make sure that you guys are not going to be out of pocket.
Okay. Was that the Workforce Development Fund?
No,
Because
that's a different
just have
pot
they just
funding.
withdrawn that
It was
as well?
called the
haven't
Employer
they, or-
Support Fund.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
So
Okay.
the Employer Support Fund was specifically for the T level.
Okay.
There is still a small pocket of funding attached to each T-level learner, but that goes direct to the colleges. So I think there's all the education providers, because they're not all
Yeah.
colleges. There are some schools in the country who are delivering this as well. But I think coming back to your point about, you know, what do you get the young person to do? There's obviously a curriculum attached to it with very clear learning objectives. And what we're doing, or I say we, it's the royal we, it's actually Nikki. Nikki's doing this work and she's doing a fantastic job around it. She's working with our college providers in Devon to start looking at how do we get some consistency between our employers, whether they're in social care or in the NHS or primary care. It's about how do we get some consistency of what that learner is going to go and experience. So how do we translate those learning objectives to the tasks that they're actually going to be doing?
Yeah.
And one of the other things Nikki has done is she's taken sort of those exemplar, nationalised, standardised job descriptions for what, you know, somebody at that level. So in health, in NHS, it's a band 2 role. She's been also looking at the exemplars for social care. What are those roles that our T-levels would be going into at the end of their qualification? And what are they able to do against their learning objectives? So we can start to create a scope of practice. So it's really clear what we can almost delegate to that young person and say, you are safe to do this because you're getting all this theory and you're being taught it in school and college, but you can work here and we will help you put that into practice. And that's what it's about. It's about putting into practice the skills they're learning in the classroom, but having that support of the employer that they're in with. And T-levels are really unique, so they can come into your into your sector and they can be completely supernumerary. You don't have to pay them, but if you want to, you could employ them as a 0 hours contract as well.
Yeah.
So they're slightly unique and different to our other learners, where they would either be supernumerary and you can't pay them, or they're an apprentice and you have to pay them. You have that option for either or. And, you know, we really see that if we can give them that experience and that exposure into these settings, we might stand more of a chance of getting them interested in this sector and then coming to work for you.
And actually, this is where it differs quite a lot from BTEC in the respect that a lot of care providers a lot of education providers used social care for the placements for the BTEC students. Because it's labelled a T-level in health, they've automatically got, no. This is purely NHS. Absolutely not. You know, I was talking to one of the educators the other day, and they didn't realise that we had occupational therapists and nurses in social care. You know, so I think to a certain extent there's been an awful lot of misinformation out there. There's been a lack of information, and this is a big part of what I'm doing at the moment, is to overcome that side.
And to celebrate the success that
And
Nikki's
celebrate.
had, she's worked with City Plymouth College. Big shout out to City Plymouth College. They have, thank you. They have actually, you know, worked with us, worked with the social care sector, and recognised, no, we can do a T-level in health and social care. So they are the first in Devon offering
Yeah.
T-level in health
They've
and
renamed it,
social
haven't
care. They've renamed it. It's up. So if you want to apply, please do look at their website and apply.
Might give that a go.
Yeah.
There you go.
And right
all
from the
now.
beginning as well, Stevie and I have come up with a hashtag that says "not just for health," haven't
Yeah,
we?
yeah.
So that's another thing that we're kind of pushing at the moment.
Oh, so we'll be
No, that's
hashtagging this
great.
video then, not just for health.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've just been involved in some work in Devon around recruitment into social care, around nursing particularly, because I think there is that kind of stigma around
Yeah.
actually you can't nurse unless you're in NHS.
Yeah.
but actually that's obviously not true.
Yeah.
Well,
Not
one,
at
I'm
all.
living proof,
Yeah.
and two, there are lots of other people that do it as well. But
Yeah.
I think sometimes people feel like you're not a real nurse,
No.
not a real nurse unless
Yeah.
you're in the health sector. But
Yeah.
it's just a nonsense, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually, social care has been great for both mental health and learning disability nursing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Amazing from that point of view.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
definitely. I will tell you this funny little thing. So I'm glad to see that you're breaking it down in terms of what people are going to be doing.
Yeah.
Because I remember being a student nurse, right, and going into a hospital. John's like, what's she going to say?
Not quite sure.
It's all good. But it was just something I never thought about. So I went into, I was in the hospital setting, older people, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they used to give the student nurses interesting jobs, let's say.
Yeah.
And but there was this one particular job I had to go and support this nurse who was taking blood from someone that was in the hospital. I just stood there, didn't think anything about it. You know, off she goes, and I'm watching her, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's lovely. And then she hands me the vial, and I take the vial, and I suddenly think, oh, that's warm.
Yeah.
And then I think, oh God, oh, that's warm. And then I make a connection like, I've got someone's body in my hand. Felt awful because I know it sounds stupid, but I just didn't expect it to be. I didn't expect it to be cold either. But it was just that thing that then suddenly brought me back into reality of like, oh my God, it's someone's body.
Do you know what?
If it was cold, the patient wasn't well.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I didn't even think about it, but it was only, and I still remember that experience.
Yeah.
I think, I wish someone had just said to me, it's going to be warm when you grab it.
Yeah.
There's so many stories like that, though, isn't there? From when you first start in care. I had a great one where I was working night shift at the RD&E, and I've only been there about a month, and it's about 3 o'clock in the morning. This very unwell lady with dementia needed the loo, and as she spun around, she had her toilet all over my legs, and as she sat down, she went, "What the hell has happened to you? You should be ashamed of yourself," as she'd covered me from top to bottom. And I just sort of stood there and went, can't get the staff, can
Heavy
you?
night.
A heavy night, yeah. But, you know, and that's the joy of care, isn't it? You
Yeah.
know, it's
That's
really
that
hard.
experiential learning, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
it
to be
is.
honest, that's exactly what you talk about in terms of the placements, is experiential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're never going to get that anywhere else, John.
Well, you really, I would hope not. but it grounds you, doesn't it? It really grounds you into the job. And if you can deal with that, you can deal with any part of it.
Yeah. But I just want to ask how you're shouting about this to, or informing everybody that's out there.
Podcasts.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
We're very grateful for
But
the opportunity.
I think social care not having a great reputation
Yeah.
for being underpaid,
You're so
undervalued.
Yeah.
How do we make it an attractive proposition for?
I think in part, you know, and again, this is part of the reason why we're here today, is to let young people see what social care is. They have this idea in their head that it's cups of teas, you know, and talking to old people. And, you know,
Well, and sometimes social care, people think, oh, it's child protection.
yeah.
Yes.
Literally, like anything, like people will jump straight into that.
Yeah.
So-
They really confuse social care with social work,
Yeah.
or they have really old, outdated ideas of what social care in sort of a domiciliary or a residential setting is, because of the way it used to be delivered, and their parents or their caregivers are the ones that are going to be shaping and informing their views. So there's something about helping not just our young people, but their wider families understand the sector that they're coming into. And, you know, it'd be really easy for us to talk about pay and remuneration and hours and stuff like that, but, you know, we aren't currently in social care.
No.
We want to work with you guys, and this is why we're so grateful that we're here today with you, because you're the ones living and breathing it. You can really shout about those opportunities, creating chances for those young people to come in and see what it's like, and the range of opportunities they have. And I'm sure you guys are aware of, you know, the plans by the government to create an adult social care career pathway. Well, in Devon, we've already got pockets of that happening, where there's modules at university being developed for postgraduate master's level qualification just in social care nursing. So we're really trying to create that pathway that actually you don't have to be a nurse in a ward in an acute hospital, and that's the only place you could go. Actually, if you want to come into social care and you love it, there is that opportunity to grow
Yeah.
into whatever you
Yeah.
want to grow into.
There
It's
is-
just as much chance.
There is quite an archaic attitude towards
Oh,
self-care, isn't there, from
yeah.
nurses
Oh,
sometimes.
isn't
So,
it just?
so a few years ago now, I was doing some stuff with Proud to Care in Devon. I was at a local school, and we were sort of talking to all the students. And I remember it really vividly. A nurse came along in her uniform. I thought this would be interesting.
Yeah.
And I went to talk to the child. She went, no. I've been a nurse for 50 years or something. They won't be coming into social care. And I felt quite let down by that, really, as a carer and a new director, thinking actually you've lived this great career in health.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want your child to follow you?
Yeah.
It's a hard situation,
And
isn't it? So how do we tweak that?
Well, one of
Attitude.
the things that I'm doing at the moment, we've just created a Mythbuster and a frequently asked questions sheet to go out and inform people. I'm also in the process of running after health and social care ambassadors or anybody who is prepared to go into schools and sell this, and to
fantastic.
tell them about this. I'm incredibly lucky because throughout my working life, I've taught, I've worked for the NHS, and I've also worked very closely with social care. So I can go in there with conviction. It's not, people have a tendency to dismiss you if you, well, what do you know about it? And I've got to say, I came into social care in 2020. And even I was shocked. So I'd worked in health for years, and I kind of thought, how different can it be? It is totally different, but it has its own unique selling points that health and the NHS and what have you don't have.
Yeah.
And I
It's
think
the same in the voluntary sector, isn't it?
It is,
It's the it's the tasks that you do within the organisations, and I think that's if I think about our turn, it's a CIC, it's a not-for-profit organisation, one part of it. But if I think about the people I see on a regular basis, they're the same people that I saw in the NHS and in social care. So it's they're the same.
Yeah.
And we're mindful we're not going to have all the answers.
No.
One of our biggest pleas actually
Really,
out to
Stevie?
the sector.
I think I do. Don't I?
No.
I'm working on it.
One of our biggest pleas out to the sector is, come and work with us. If you've got an idea, an opportunity, there's something that you want to try, let's see if we can create that. Let's see if we can break down those barriers together. If you're interested and you want to give something a go and be a little bit unique or a little bit different, come and talk to us. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can bring.
I think, and that almost brings this to a close, doesn't it? I think ultimately, there's an opportunity here for social care.
Definitely.
It comes with barriers, and it comes with a lot of thinking that needs to be done. But ultimately, if we want to see a successful route into our companies from youngsters, we need to be thinking ahead. And we need to be working through these barriers together to see if we can make it happen. It's not going to be easy.
Absolutely. But people said that about the BTEC years and years and years and years ago. It can't be done. Yes, it can. And it was done very successfully. We just have to make sure that the transition onto the T-level platform allows you guys to have that voice and come and work with us to say, look, social care is great.
So if you're in Devon, how do they get hold of you?
Best way is email, actually.
Yeah.
And we can provide email addresses. That's not a problem. And I would absolutely love for there to be like those questions. If there are burning topics or particular things that they just think, I'm open to this, but I don't quite see how it would work because of X thing. If there's an opportunity for us to come and do more like this, or focused on particular topics or aspects, let's do that. If we don't know what the challenges are or what the interest is, we can't always get it over the line.
Should we bring some T-level people in to let them have their own podcasts?
Yes.
I would love that.
Yes, that would be amazing.
You're paying for it.
I mean, I could bring more sweeties and fruit, keep it balanced.
Well then, that's it then. That has been Who Cares? And we've been talking T-levels, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. Well, the
Well
camera went
done,
off.
you.
Oh.
You led
2
into some
seconds.
great questions for me there.